This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gitu. You what? It's Friday, July 19th. This is Africa 54. Libyan officials warn that the country is headed for disaster as the violent battle for control of the capital intensifies. My interview with Paul Njoroge, who lost his wife and children in the Boeing airliner crash in Ethiopia. He speaks about his dramatic testimony before the U.S. Congress and his views on the investigation into Boeing 737 MAX airplanes. And we bring you the latest and greatest hit from award-winning South African singer Sho Madjozi. Tonight we begin in Libya, where two rival governments are waging an all-out battle for control of the capital, Tripoli. More than 1,000 people have died and more than 100,000 others have been displaced by the war. Officials say if the fighting does not slow down, the country is headed towards disaster. VOA's Heather Murdoch is in Tripoli and has our report.
Ali Fatih El-Faqih groaned as his car approached a tank, billowing metallic-smelling smoke. An airstrike had hit the tank, and Ali was afraid his brother was among the casualties. He and a fellow soldier, Mohammed Bashir, hurried to a field hospital. For Ali, there was a moment of relief. His brother, Abdul Wahab, was not hit. But officials say Tripoli is at a breaking point. This month alone, a hospital and a migrant detention center have also been hit by airstrikes as rival governments battle for control of the city.
If this war expands or escalates, it will be a disaster, a big disaster.
The fighting began in early April when Khalifa Haftar, the de facto leader of Libya's eastern government, announced his plan to take the capital by force. His forces have been battling with Tripoli's forces, loyal to the UN-recognized government in the West, ever since. Haftar says he is fighting terrorism. But on this side of the front line, soldiers say the war is for Libya's future. If Haftar wins Tripoli, they say, Libya will revert back to the days of rule by a single strongman.
The support is very weak. The international community recognizes our government, but the war has gone on for months, and there is no no-fly zone or protection of the government or the civilians in the capital by the international community.
Less than an hour after finding the burning tank, Ali and Mohammed drove off in their armored car, relieved that Abdul Wahab was okay. Mohammed says Ali then got in another vehicle to tow the burnt tank off the road. As he was working, Mohammed says, another airstrike hit Ali and killed him. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Tripoli.
Airline manufacturing giant Boeing is facing one of the worst crises in its history since the grounding of its 737 MAX jets after crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia. Kenyan-Canadian Paul Njoroge, who lost his family in March crash in Ethiopia, has been overwhelmed with grief and has not been able to work or return to his home. I spoke with him today and asked him about the message he passed along Wednesday during his testimony to the U.S. House Subcommittee on Aviation.
You started by saying that we all fly on these planes, and it's a question that I have asked many times. If Boeing cannot fix the issues that needs to be fixed, to whom is it well? It is not well with me for the rest of my life, but it should not be well for the public as well, because if a thorough investigative process is not completed and before these planes are ungrounded and before the fixes are done, then somebody else will lose their families. I would like to see them do a thorough fact-finding process. There were so many weaknesses in their internal oversight that led to the flaws in the design of the 737 MAX, to the installation of the dangerous software, which is MCAS, and to the certification of a plane that should not have been certified and should not have been allowed to fly.
Now, do you feel, Njoroge, after going through all this, that perhaps the reason there were not immediate investigations and that Boeing continued to fly and didn't give much of apologies on this was because the crash happened in third world countries, Ethiopia and Indonesia?
Basically, after the crash of Lion Air Flight 610, that's in October of last year, Boeing, at that time, Boeing had not even disclosed the existence of the software in those planes. It was only in November, after the Allied Pilots Association requested Boeing to provide more information, that's when the world came to know that there is a software within these planes that can cause the plane to nosedive and kill people. At that point, Boeing should have grounded the MAX in order to look at this system, in order to look at the flaws in the designed 737 MAX and fix the issues.
But you still feel that the investigations that should have taken place did not take place because it happened?
Yes. After the crash of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 that killed my family and my mom-in-law and 152 others, the U.S. and Boeing did not feel compelled to actually ground those planes. The planes were grounded in all countries in the rest of the world. But the U.S. took about 3 to 4 days before the grounding was done.
What do you expect to see after the testimony you gave at the U.S. Congress?
I wanted them to see the faces of the people who are feeling the pain. I wanted them to hear the voices of the people who are feeling the pain. And I wanted them to know that that crash could have happened anywhere. And it could have happened in the United States. It could be them in my position. It could be them who had lost their family members. So I wanted them to feel that, to relate with our feelings, so that they will feel compelled to do a thorough investigative process and make sure that this plane that all the issues are fixed and that the FAA is in a position to look into what Boeing is doing.
I want to ask you how you feel and what you're doing to keep you going.
It never goes away. I think about the last 6 minutes a lot. It's always something that I dread. Flying has become something that I don't like to do. You know, every aspect of my life today is a constant reminder that I'm not with my family. Every day is a struggle. I have never gone back to work. I don't know if I'll ever go back to work. There are days that I just weep, I just cry. And I see people with their children. I can have mine.
The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is moving to block most asylum seekers at the Mexican border because U.S. Attorney General William Barr says only a small minority of those individuals qualify for asylum. The proposed change would apply to what U.S. Border Patrol agents say has been an increase of asylum seekers from Central Africa. VOA's Azuma Compaore traveled to Texas to hear from Africans who have made it across the border and are waiting to hear what will happen to them now.
African asylum seekers are here in Texas after an often perilous journey by bus and on foot from Brazil and Ecuador through the jungles of Central America to the U.S. border with Mexico. None of the migrants we spoke with here agreed to be identified by their full names as they are awaiting their immigration hearing. 34-year-old Congolese Pompon says the scariest part of the trip was the Darien forest between Colombia and Panama.
To go through the Darien forest is not a small thing. Every time I sit down, I see the forest again in my thoughts without stopping.
27-year-old Congolese Marcelo says he feared losing his wife and child on the trip when they were crossing the river.
We crossed to the other side. This is where my wife fell into the water with our child on her back. I thought she and the child were dead. When I found them, I could only praise God.
The number of African migrants apprehended at the border with Mexico were fewer than 100 in years past, but has already grown to nearly 800 this year as part of an immigration crisis that is at the center of the U.S. politics. Jennifer Long heads the Texas immigrant shelter, Casa Marinela.
So the majority of people that we see from Africa have not been able to apply for the refugee program of the United States, which you have to be in a refugee camp to do that. So if you don't have access to that, you have to come to the United States border, which is extremely difficult if you're coming from Africa.
U.S. Border Patrol Section Chief Raul Ortiz policies more than 300 kilometers of border along the Rio Grande River. He says the increase in African migrants here is a unique part of the immigration crisis.
Almost all of the African nationals were part of family units. The language barrier certainly posed a bit of a challenge for us. A lot of French-speaking folks that we had to find interpreters for so we could get them processed as soon as we possibly could.
Ortiz says larger groups of immigrants crossing the Rio Grande has led to an increase in Border Patrol water rescues and a greater number of drownings for people trying to reach the United States illegally.
We certainly want to encourage people to use the legal and formal process. We don't want to encourage people to use smugglers or criminal organizations to facilitate their travel to the U.S. We don't want them putting their lives in danger. And so we want to continue to message that as much as we possibly can.
Safely in the United States, migrants waiting for their asylum interviews are hoping for the best. Nicolette is from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
My dream is that God blesses me and I have my papers and work. That's my dream. And I want my children to study and have American papers and be in good standing. I would like to be good in this country.
The increase of African asylum seekers in Texas may be connected to political unrest and violence in several of the countries of origin. The United Nations says internal conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo has displaced more than 4 million people inside the country and pushed some 800,000 into other African nations. Arzuma Kampaure, VOA News, San Antonio, Texas.
It's D-Day for the remaining teams in the Africa Cup of Nations in Cairo, and joining us now is Africa 54 sports reporter Sande Shomari. Good evening, Sande. Senegal is facing Algeria. What are the team captains saying ahead of the game?
Good evening, Esther. As you say, it is D-Day for sure. Someone has to win, and all the teams are here to win, but not to go home. The captains have spoken today with the reporters, and Chiku Kouyaté, the captain of Senegal Lions of Teranga, he says this is not a game of revenge because they lost on their first match with Algeria. But here he says they're here to win the cup. So I don't know how you do that, but they're here for a winning. And also on the other side, Riyad Mahrez, Manchester City forward who plays for the Desert Foxes, he says Algeria knows they have a great team to face, but they will make sure they win tonight because you have more than 100 or 500 people came in tonight just for this game. So it's going to be a great game of football as such to watch tonight.
All right, Sunday. You know what? It's time to get your popcorn now. Go watch it for us. We'll wrap it up on Monday. Thank you. Africa 54 sports guru Sande Shomari reporting live for us from Cairo. We're excited about what you think about Africa 54, and we'll be right back.
international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, the health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
Famed South African musician Johnny Clegg, who was one of the loudest voices in pop during the anti-apartheid movement in the 1980s, has died at age 66 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. The White Zulu, so named for his use of indigenous South African music and dance, is being mourned across South Africa. VOA's Anita Powell has more from Johannesburg.
Johnny Clegg, known as the White Zulu, was, to the end, proudly South African. The white singer broke boundaries in apartheid South Africa by borrowing from Zulu culture, a move that challenged social and legal norms at the time. That, he said, was the point.
I was always a bridge for white people into the possibility of connecting with, another culture, not in an academic way, but in a sensuous engagement and mode of sharing and joy and just getting that connection.
His bandmate, Sipho Mchunu, met him 50 years ago. Together they founded the band Juluka, and Mchunu taught him how to dance and stick fight. But he says he too learned from the man he said was more than a brother.
I never been to the school, I can't read and write, so he made me understand the white people, a little bit of the culture, you see, he helped me a lot with that, all those things. I help him too, but to me, it doesn't look like, I don't feel like when the people are saying, you teach him a lot, I said, he teach me a lot also. So in Zulu, we call that izandla ziyagezana. The hands, he wash his knowledge.
His loss is also deeply felt on the streets of Johannesburg.
You can compare it to any international performance, like, for instance, Queen was a true performer, a true artist. So was Johnny Clegg, He captured the imagination of the people. He told a beautiful story. And
young musician Nipa Mubaiwa said she is inspired by her mother's love for the singer.
When we speak about legends and icons, we're actually speaking about people like Johnny Clegg, people like Freddie Mercury, and. So I think for me, that's a really iconic moment. And you know that you created such a big impact when you pass away, and so many people are just in an utter state of shock because of the amount of impact that you had on their lives.
Part-time musician Konosekula says Clegg left a deep impression.
They do that Zulu dance and talking. Johnny Clegg was the best. He was a super musician, yeah? He was a legend.
Although the White Zulu died Tuesday at age 66, his music, Kula says, will live on forever. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
Amnesty International has brought to Kenya a mini-series from America's Netflix channel about 4 young black men wrongfully jailed for sexual assault in New York. The human rights group says its special screening of When They See Us is meant to give Kenyans an idea on how to exercise their rights when arrested and the role of the media in fighting for justice. From Nairobi, VOA's Huba Abdi produced this report, narrated by Mkamiti Kibayasi.
Is my mom here? The 4-episode series depicts the true story of the Central Park Five, the 5 young black men in New York City whose childhoods were cut short when they were convicted of sexual assaulting jogger Trisha Mail in 1989, only to be exonerated in 2002. The story also shows how a broken system and biased media coverage destroyed the lives of the young men and their families. Amnesty International screened the show in Nairobi's Dandora slum, where the United Nations says people live in one of the most polluted sites in the world. Amnesty's Kenya director, Irunga Utons, says it was aimed at showing Dandora residents some of the challenges to finding justice.
We thought this was too important a movie to be shown in CBD or in the suburbs of Nairobi. We would come to the place where the issues that the movie covers really are reflected in the life experiences of the young youth and men and women that you see here today.
Dandora resident Wilson Kinywa came to watch the miniseries. He says he spent 30 years in prison on a wrongful conviction, studied law in jail, and successfully fought for his release.
The studies that I did while in jail opened my eyes to see which part of my case wasn't fair and the unfair process that I went through. I took my case to court again. The Constitution petition is affecting a lot of prisoners who found themselves in my position. 12 of us who were prisoners opened our cases again, and I was representing all of them. I was given a chance to submit my case in front of judges for an hour and a half, oral and written submission.
Kibera Court Judge Barbara Ojo came to the screening. She says fear and a lack of knowledge about their rights are some of the biggest challenges for citizens in the criminal justice system.
We say when police arrest you, they must tell why they arrest you. You have a right to know why you are arrested. It is your constitution right, article number 50. So we see that is an issue. People need to understand the importance of their rights. It is part of our Bill of Rights under Chapter 4 of the Constitution. We have seen this is a very important issue for them to know and understand.
The screening followed a Human Rights Watch report accusing Kenyan police of killing 21 people in Nairobi slums over the last year.
That was Mkamiti Kibayasi narrating for producer Huba Abdi. She is known by the stage name Shoma Josie, and in June she won the Black Entertainment Award for Best New International Act. Shoma Josie hails from South Africa's Limpopo province. Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell, along with Kwame Ofori, have the details on show's biggest hit to date, called Huku.
Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Maxwell, and Kwame Ofori joins me.
Hey, everyone.
So we have selected a song called Huku. Huku is by a singer from South Africa. Her name is Shoma Josie. We just love her.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah! What I was saying before is, she brings a real international flavor and colorful look to her music.
And I wish her all the best. She's having a good year. She started having a good year in 2018. 2019 looks very colorful for her. Keep going, Shoma Josie.
Keep going, Shaw. I'm Heather Maxwell.
And I'm Mr. Asante here for you now and always.
And that was
Song of the Week.
Yeah.
And that's our show for today. Watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.